Hi everyone, welcome to AI for the Average Joe episode 3. Can you believe we're on episode 3? Thank you so much for your engagement with episode 1 and 2. We've had some really fantastic comments and feedback, and I love the fact that people have actually gone away and implemented some of our suggestions and the things that we've been doing in the session, right? We've had some great comments.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. We're just trying to bring practical stuff that you can do something with, and that's the real purpose for us pulling this together for you today. And Erica and I are together today, which is quite a novelty as well.
We're in the same office. It's unusual.
So let's get started.
So really excited. This is the first of a series of AI for the Average Joe episodes where we're bringing you guests who are using AI in lots of different ways. So today we're going to introduce you to Barry White, who's been using generative AI. And Barry, over to you. What's your name? Where'd you come from? And tell us a bit more about what you've been up to.
Yeah, thanks, Erica. So I'm Barry White, Head of Learning and Organisational Development at National Gas. And also an executive coach. And I guess my first introduction to AI and all its possibilities came from one of my coaching clients. So they spoke to me after one session and asked how much I was using it in thinking about notes, pro formas, and just structures around my coaching business.
Yeah. Did they have a background in AI? What prompted their conversation? Was it a general interest?
I think they were younger than me, so probably much more much more up to speed, I think, with AI and the possibilities. So I think they were, by their own admission, a bit of a technology geek. So they were very interested in it and had been exploring it, and then they gave me like 2 or 3 hints and tips, which made me curious.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's that curiosity, I think, now, which is where people are like, okay, well, if they can use it for something so practical, what else can it be used for?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just trying to close that gap of like AI not being some weird conceptual thing that other people are doing that we've talked about before. So really keen, Barry, to understand, like, what was your first steps? What kind of things did you do? What AI systems were you using, and why? Why did you decide to kind of do what you did for your coaching business?
Yeah, sure. So I think it started, we were having a bit of a chat, and I was talking about the administrative burden of like trying to set up as a coach and think about coaching contracts, coaching agreements, notes, pro formas, all those sort of different bits and pieces which are really important. And the chap that I was speaking to just said, well, yeah, just put it into ChatGPT and go. And I was like, what? And he was like, well, just ask them to write you a coaching contract. And he said, it's really easy. Just go into the app and make your commands and, tweak it. And he said, it won't be perfect, and it won't be exactly what you're looking for. But he was like, it will be 80 or 90% there.
Yeah.
You don't have to engage solicitors. You don't have to spend hours and hours of time researching the internet looking for templates and pro formas that would work for you. So he was like, just have a little go. And I guess that's where I started. I went, had a little look, and I couldn't believe it. I just put in a general command that says, write me a contract for a coaching company, an organization, and it wrote one, and it was pretty good. And I'd actually got a copy from a coaching federation and sort of had a look at the two together, and it was spot on. So then my client said, if you want coaching agreements, if you want stuff set up, just keep asking it and coming up with those pro formas.
Yeah.
So that was really easy. I guess the thing that really was a lot of fun as well was the logo. So I'd sort of been speaking to him about how do I get a logo going, and I was talking about I'd had some conversations with a graphic designer and wasn't quite sure sort of what I wanted, and he was like, well, just ask AI. And I was like, it can't do that, can it? And he said, yeah. And I mean, by this point, I was sort of reasonably familiar with ChatGPT and text-based ones, but he sort of said you could go to Bing or you could go to Canva, and all of the big organizations have or in the middle of like developing AI products. So he said, just go to an image generator one, which is what I did. And I guess myself and my family had quite a bit of fun trying to come up with logos at that point.
Brilliant. Yeah. So when you start, just taking you back to that first, when you put in your prompt about your contract and seeing that just coming back at you, you said, you know, I was really quite shocked by that and I couldn't quite believe it. How did that feel in terms of inspiring you then to do more with it? How did that inspire you to then start looking at the logos and some of the other things?
I think, like I said, I didn't know too much about it to begin with, so it was just a curiosity and a prompt from a friend. But when I saw its capability, like one of my areas of like development is like procrastination, you know, and you can sit at a computer and just think, right, where do I start with this? Like, what have I got to do? And I suppose I was inspired because it was like having some sort of like thought partner on crack or something. You know, you literally just said, well, I'm thinking of this, and then it's delivered it to you. And then I guess why it worked for me and why I was inspired was it gave me something to work off. So, you know, I could be like, yeah, that's right, that's important to me, I'll take that. No, that, you know, this paragraph or this section, that's not applicable, I don't need that. But I was working from something instantly. Whereas previously, you know, it can feel like quite overwhelming and daunting to start with some of this stuff, and you think, well, where do I start? Like, what websites, what people do I reach out to? And here, you know, I write one command, and maybe sometimes I don't even get the command completely right, but you can see from them what it gives you. Well, I'll make a couple of tweaks, and then get something that within 2 minutes I'm actually working from a live document or a set of text, which it just inspired me then to think, right, this doesn't have to be as difficult as I think it is in my head, and it doesn't have to be as time consuming for me either, in terms of the research or bringing in suppliers, or, you know, going to a solicitor, going to other business users and testing it and working it out. There's something here that I can really start with. So that was the inspiration then. And then, so then I got, well, what else can it do? Like, maybe it can do some like logoed pro forma notes for me. Maybe it can do all my agreements. Maybe it can find a way to structure my, you know, my notes and stuff, so that people aren't just writing on a blank piece of paper. They're using my headed note paper with my logo and stuff, but it hasn't been a huge time commitment or development cost for me. It's just something I've said, create this, and it's gone and created it for me.
Yeah, it's great, and I can really relate to that procrastination.
I wasn't going to say anything, but
I'm absolutely, honestly, the queen of it, and everything you're saying, Barry, I can relate to so much, because I find nothing more fearful than a blank piece of paper, and I've got so much thought and insight to share, and I can only share it in a conversation, and I can't figure that out, why I've got this blocker. So it's really, really similar to your point. As soon as I realised I could put into ChatGPT, even a framework, I'm not asking it to do the work for me, because obviously I want to add my touch in, but whether it's a blog or whether it's a post or whether it's learning outcomes or structure for a learning design or session, it just gives me that starting point, and I'm off. And it doesn't so much save me the time writing it, but it saves me the time procrastinating and thinking about writing it, which could be weeks sometimes.
And it's the frustration of doing that stuff that you're not very good at as well, which this is the beauty of this stuff, is it can take away all of the stuff you don't want to do, because and it can give you that time to do the sexy, interesting, creative stuff that you do want to do. So from the motivation engagement piece, like no-brainer.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
So do you want to talk us through, you know, you've mentioned the logo already, and I know you've got different iterations that you went through. So you've got your documents, which is brilliant, your contract, your pro forma, etc. And then the logo is the interesting bit. It always is when you set up a new business. But do you want to take us through like where you started? And I know you did some work with your family on looking at it as well. And what did you change each time during that iterative process to get to a point that you were really happy with?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's another procrastination, right? Coming up with a name and a logo. And my coach at the time said, look, if spend a week or two on it, and if you're not getting there, just run with your name. But I was like, my name's Barry White, and that doesn't really work very well in Google search. So I need
you put Barry White into your Google and you get the playlist, right?
I think you might slap a Bubby on there, you're right.
So it was actually my sort of wife that came up with like White Tiger and said, they're unique and there's like courage in action, and I think it would work really well for you.
It wasn't her nickname for you or anything like that then?
It wasn't, no. Although it could well be now, I think. So we started there. So then at least then I knew I needed a white tiger in the logo somewhere, but again was then sort of building stuff in my head, like, right, okay, I need a graphic designer, I need to give them a brief, I need like color palettes, I need all of this sort of stuff, and it became slightly overwhelming in my head. So again, the person that I was coaching just said, just ask it to come up with a logo for a coaching business with a tiger in it, and that's what I did. So I mean, it's an iterative process. I definitely sort of learned as I went on, and I think the more you can just practice and have fun with the commands, you can still get there pretty quickly. So I know I sort of shared a few pictures with you, but I'm happy just to sort of walk through those and just sort of share my journey with it. So I mean, I started by asking for a tiger logo. So quite naive, just experimental. Can I get a tiger logo? So that top orange tiger head came up, and I was kind of, well, that's pretty cool, but it's not white and it doesn't really look like a coaching business. And so I quickly realized, well, you hadn't actually asked it to be a white tiger.
That's quite an important bit, right?
Quite important. So I then asked it to be a white tiger, but I forgot to say that it was a logo or a drawing. So it then, the next one returned a photo for me. But then I started then to work out some of its like parameters of, how it was pulling from my sort of commands. So I then sort of started to get into, can you create me a logo of a drawn tiger head in a silhouette with some text underneath that will say my business name, White Tiger Coaching.
Yeah. And
you can see the third one there, right? So it hasn't quite grasped the wording quite right. But you can also
for something.
Yeah. So it hasn't quite got there, but I've started to put an element of specifics into the command. So now I have text, now I have a tiger head, and by this point I'm starting to realize that it's playing with colors a little bit, even though it hasn't got the text quite right. But I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, that doesn't really look like coaching. That the tiger looks a bit aggressive and maybe not quite what I'm looking for, but it was getting closer to it. At this point, my daughter starts getting really like interested in what I'm doing and wants to sort of join in. And we've got a pet poodle. So she then asked it whether it could do a poodle with sunglasses on. And as you can see, like it can do whatever you ask it to do. So I think it's just from someone that knew nothing about it to then getting curious from a coaching colleague of mine. I think, I just opened Bing AI, put it in creative mode and asked it to start coming up with drawings, and this is what it did. So I then started to ask it, can it provide a less aggressive looking tiger in the image? And it, you can see from the next one there, it started to get to it. And it then returned that, and then I asked it to bring some like pastel grays and some lighter colors into the background, which is in that middle one. So I think, I'm talking about this now, but this whole journey probably was like 5 minutes of it. It returns a picture within 10-15 seconds. And again, I'm working off, well, I like that, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Can I get it to tweak that? And then, the sort of bottom right picture, again, it's not perfect in terms of the font, but you can see a much softer looking tiger, a bit of pink and color in the eyes. So again, at this point, I was like really specific. Can you create me a logo for a coaching business? I'd like a calm and assured tiger with some color on a pastel gray background, and with the font, white tiger coaching underneath. And that's what it came out. And I was like, well, at least I've got, like, I like this, and now I've got something that I can just give to my graphic designer and say,
love that.
Like, basically, like, I want a version of this as quickly as you can make it. And that's probably saved me 2-3 days of like briefing, scoping, going back and forth with the graphic designer. It's definitely saved me a lot of money as well. In terms of hours, because the graphic designer was like, right, I get it, I get your vision, I know what you want, I can spin that around really quickly. So that's my whistle stop tour of Bing AI was the one that I used.
Love it.
It's really helpful, and it takes me back actually. So before we started playing around with AI, we did a similar thing with our logo. We were trying to get to what we wanted, and I think we were taking, like, saving images on Google Images and saving them to our phone, weren't we? And every time we found something, we'd send it to our designers, and we lost a load of stuff. There would have been images that we really liked that just got lost in the funnel. So what this does provides that really progressive process, doesn't it?
It does. And quick and punchy and responsive and instant. And it's, for me, it just kind of strengthens the case that we can all just lift up our level of thinking and creativity, because AI is just doing all of that hard legwork for us, isn't it?
And I suppose it comes back to that, we don't want this to replace the skills of a graphic designer. So you're not saying I've done this instead, you're saying this has just enabled you to have that real visual starting point that you can then harness and use for the next stage of development. So it's taken away that fear of, oh, AI is going to replace everything. It's actually, no, it's just given us a bit of a leg up when we need it in certain areas.
But I think that's
when I was just going to say, the last time I remember using a graphic designer, I probably lost like 3 or 4 days of him sending back sort of scopes and briefs of him trying to get roughly into my headset. Like, you can see from the image, right, I still need a graphic designer. It's not perfect. I need it set up. I need the font doing. So I'm not, the graphic designer still remains there, but cutting out all of that bureaucracy and scoping, and well, no, that wasn't really my vision. It was more like this. Oh, what? So something like this. No, I meant something. Like, all of that has been cut out by me spending 5 minutes on my phone in an evening, sort of working through that, and then just handing it him and saying, I want something like this. Can you create this? And then he's just straight off into his expertise and skill set of creating that logo that I can then lift and put on, the contracts, the coaching documents, the notes, and everything else. So it's just getting that blend between the two, I think.
And the key to that is the prompt, isn't it? It's the quality of the prompt. And we've got a couple of guests coming on later who are going to give us some really practical, specific like ways to use prompts. But the way you talked about draw me a tiger versus create me a drawn white tiger that is this and this, and it has this and this, like the difference in that journey. But that hasn't taken you, kind of an Oxford English dictionary or reading a white paper to get there.
It's trial and error, isn't it?
And curiosity. You said curiosity so many times there, which ties into coaching really nicely.
I think it would be really good now to see where we can take this, because Barry, you'll be on this journey with us as well, but we're going to now start looking at actually people who have been working more specifically on these prompts and getting the most out of what we want to get them quicker. And I think what people will be looking for now is those prompt ideas, isn't it? Well, what can I what can I put in there and how do I generate the best
for my role,
for my
role and my tasks, and like you were saying, like where do people spend their time and how can they automate that, and what does it mean for me, and this is the gap we need to close now. And I think your example, Barry, is a really good one.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, I think you can just get to something where you keep people and their capability. If I think about my role, like within National Gas, I want people using their skills and capabilities where they make a difference, not wasting time on job descriptions or bits and pieces that exist or standards that are out there. So I think if you can really get to a place where you have confidence and understand how it fits that gap, so you're then really using the human element on the specialist capabilities and skill sets that you've got, like I think there's huge potential. But yeah, just my advice would be just to have a play with it, right? Go with no expectations and just experiment with commands and prompts, and you'll surprise yourself what you can achieve.
Yeah, love that. So let's wrap it up. I think that was a good, nice little podcast again, really practical. Thank you, Barry. How can people get hold of you if they're interested in your coaching services? Yeah, sure. I think probably whilst my website and logo remains in development, probably LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So yeah, just on LinkedIn, if you search Barry White, you'll find me. I think my handle is BJWhite07 after the LinkedIn. So just give me a search on there. Amazing. Right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching episode 3. I'm gonna have to write down the number of episodes now, so I'm remembering each one. We've got some great guests joining us, 4, 5, 6 on the way, filming soon as well. So thank you, Barry, for being with us today and sharing all of that fantastic practical case study. I think people are going to take a lot away from that, aren't they?
It's really good. Thanks, Barry.
Yeah, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much. Thanks, Barry. Take care. Thanks.